The email arrived at 4:47. Rebecca's office was on the third floor of the English department. 14 years of teaching accumulated into one small room. A wall of books organized by something that made sense only to her. A ceramic mug on a coaster that had gone cold an hour ago. A window looking out over the west end of campus where students moved in small clusters between the buildings. Thursday afternoon, November, the semester nearly done. She was mid-sentence on a stack of student essays when Sean's email appeared in the corner of her screen. Did you remember to reschedule Nora's dental appointment? I've been thinking about it. Rebecca looked at the email, then at her phone. She opened a notes app and found the entry from 2 weeks ago. Dentist rescheduled, 10 a.m., December 4th confirmation number in the next line. She had remembered. She had done it. She had the confirmation number. And still, her fingers found the keyboard and started typing.
Sorry, I should have told you sooner.
She stopped, looked at what she'd written. She had done the thing. On time. Without being asked, she'd moved the appointment, confirmed it, written the number down. There was nothing to apologize for. She hadn't forgotten, hadn't dropped anything, hadn't failed at a single step of a task she hadn't even been assigned. She deleted the sentence, started again.
Yes. It's confirmed for December 4th at 10.
She stopped again, looked out the window. A student was crossing the plaza below, headphones in, moving fast with somewhere to be. A red backpack. The kind of purposeful stride that belongs to people who are late for something they know they're going to make anyway. The sentence waited. December 4th at 10. Just the fact, just the truth. No, sorry, no softening, no permission asked. Nothing had happened. Sean hadn't said anything wrong. No conflict, no tension, nothing to smooth over. Just an email about a dental appointment she'd already handled. And still something in her had reached automatically for the way your tongue finds a sore tooth before you've decided to touch it. She sat in the November quiet of her office and tried to figure out when she had started doing that. She couldn't find the beginning. That was the first thing she noticed. She taught literature. 14 years of asking students to read language carefully. Every word is a choice, she told them. The word the writer chose and the word they did not choose. Both of those are the text. She was good at this. Students came back years after graduation and told her she'd changed something in the way they read, which made it strange that she had not noticed what her own language was doing. She counted the next day as an experiment. She said sorry 11 times before noon. She apologized for being 5 minutes early to a meeting. She apologized at the coffee machine when someone reached for the carafe at the same moment she did. She said sorry in emails before making requests that were entirely reasonable to make. She said it in her own classroom when a student interrupted her and she paused to listen. 11 times. And not once had she done anything that required an apology. She had existed. She had moved through spaces. She had occupied the time that was hers to occupy. And she had apologized for all of it. She wrote the number down on the back of a student essay and stared at it. 11. She thought about what it cost. Not in any dramatic way. She wasn't angry yet, didn't have the language for anger yet, just the arithmetic of it. 11 stories, 11 tiny signals, each one saying the same thing in a different direction. I know I'm taking up space. I'm sorry, it's your space. She thought about who was receiving those signals. The morning of the coffee mug was a Friday in October. 3 weeks before the email. She hadn't been looking for anything. She'd been half awake, standing in the kitchen in the gray light before the rest of the house was moving, reaching for her own mug on the shelf above the coffee maker. Sean was at the table, reading something on his phone. He hadn't looked up.
Sorry,
She stopped, held the mug. Sean hadn't said anything. He hadn't been in her way. She hadn't bumped him or woken him or reached for something he wanted. She had crossed her own kitchen and reached for her own mug, and her mouth had produced a sorry before she'd cleared the doorway. She stood there for a moment, trying to remember what the apology had been for. She couldn't find it.
What?
Nothing. Sorry.
He looked up briefly, nodded, went back to his phone. She made her coffee, stood at the counter and drank it while it was still hot, watching the backyard where the leaves had mostly gone and the November light was thin and clear. She had apologized to a room. She had apologized for reaching for a mug in her own kitchen. She thought about the logic of it. What exactly was the apology for? She hadn't spilled anything. She hadn't interrupted. She had simply existed in a space where someone else also existed, and her automatic response to that coexistence was to apologize for it. She finished her coffee, put the mug in the sink. Did not say sorry. Sean managed construction projects. He was methodical, contained, the kind of person who arrived at things with a plan already mapped. 9 years of marriage had given Rebecca a detailed education in the specific texture of his calm. It was a real calm, not performed, not forced. Sean moved through difficulty without spiking. He didn't shout, didn't slam things, didn't create the weather patterns that her first relationship had made her expect from conflict. That had been the gift of him early on, the steadiness. What she had taken longer to understand was the way the steadiness could be deployed. The sigh was the first instrument. Not loud, not exasperated, just a small, contained exhale. Controlled, measured, barely audible, that preceded whatever came next. She had learned over 9 years that the sigh meant she had done something wrong, even before the words came. Sometimes no words came at all, just the sigh, and then the hours after, when the air in the house had a particular quality. The second instrument was the phrase. It's fine. Really? 4 words that were the opposite of what they claimed it to be. She knew this in the way you know something in your chest before you can say it in your head. It meant it is not fine. It meant we are not going to talk about it, but we are also not going to pretend it didn't happen. She had been apologizing her way into that silence for 9 years. One evening in September, she had been 40 minutes late picking up Nora from a friend's house. Traffic, a delayed class, a student who had stayed to ask questions. Nora was fine, happy, hadn't even noticed the time.
I'm so sorry. It just got so complicated. The traffic on Burnside was...
It's fine.
He hadn't looked up from the cutting board. She had stood there with grocery bags in her hands, the apology still sitting in the room with both of them, and she had understood, as she had understood many times before, that it's fine was not the end of the conversation. It was the beginning of a silence. She put the groceries away, she made dinner, and across the kitchen counter, Sean moved with the particular quality of a man who is being patient, who is allowing himself to be present under the circumstances. The circumstances being her. Oh, she said sorry 2 more times before the end of the evening. She wasn't sure what she had been apologizing for. She was beginning to think she had been apologizing for being in the room. The faculty meeting was on a Thursday in late October. 12 people around a conference table. Curricular updates, a proposed change to the sophomore seminar sequence, spring enrollment numbers. Rebecca had something to say about the proposed change. She had been thinking about it for 2 weeks. It wasn't radical, just a structural suggestion, a way of sequencing the course that actually served the students better. She had taught the course 4 times. She had the data and the instinct and the argument. She waited for the right pause, found it, and then opened her mouth and said,
Sorry, but I wonder if we should consider...
Diane stopped her. Diane had been in the department for 22 years. Sharp eyes, a habit of saying exactly what she meant, and not very much else. She looked at Rebecca across the table.
Why are you apologizing?
The room shifted. Not dramatically, just a small acoustic change of 12 people redirecting at once.
What?
You were about to say something, and you started with sorry. What are you sorry for?
I was going to suggest...
You're right, by the way. About the sequencing. I've thought the same thing for 2 years. Just say it.
Rebecca opened her mouth. No, sorry, this time, just the suggestion, the argument, the reasoning. Her voice sounded to her own ears. Different without the apology in front of it. Slightly exposed, like stepping outside without a coat you'd forgotten you were wearing. The cold air was where you expected the coat to be. And it was fine, and the coat wasn't there, and it was fine. The room considered what she said. The department chair asked a question. There was actual discussion. By the end, her suggestion was being taken seriously in a way it hadn't been in the 30 seconds before Diane stopped her. After the meeting, in the hallway, Diane touched her elbow briefly as they filed out.
You do that a lot.
Do what?
Apologize. Before you've said anything wrong. I noticed it last spring too. I almost said something then.
I guess I do?
What are you apologizing for?
Oh, she didn't have an answer for that. She walked back to her office and sat at her desk. The sorry at the beginning of the sentence. The apology offered preemptively before anyone had claimed she'd done anything wrong. What was she apologizing for? For having an opinion? For taking up 2 minutes of meeting time to offer one? She taught language. She knew what apologies were for. They were for harm. They were for the moments when your action had cost someone something real. Si nens of the so chur cannot di yo. So great to tuta and not this. It's then on not I fringlemy, the back gride. They keep going class too. Yeah. She sat with that for a long time. It didn't resolve, but it sat differently than it had before Diane had named it. The Saturday morning of the pancakes. Nora was 8. She liked strawberries cut exactly in half, not quarters. And she liked cartoons on Saturday morning the way she liked breathing. So much, she forgot it was a preference. It was just the natural order of things. Rebecca was at the stove, batter on the griddle, steam rising. Nora appeared in the doorway, still in pajamas, hair loose from last night's braids, holding the corner of the wall the way she did when she was approaching something she wasn't sure she had permission for. She said,
Sorry. Can I watch cartoons while you make breakfast?
Rebecca turned around, spatula in hand. She looked at her daughter, 8 years old, standing in her own house on a Saturday morning, asking permission to watch cartoons in her own living room, beginning the question with sorry. The word arriving before the request, as if it needed to soften the entrance of a need that was entirely ordinary, that had been met every Saturday for as long as Nora could remember. Rebecca heard her own voice in it. She heard the coffee mug. She heard the faculty meeting. She heard 11 sorries before noon.
You don't have to apologize for that, baby.
Nora looked at her for a moment, considering.
Asking is good. You can always ask. You just don't need the sorry before it.
Nora seemed to file this somewhere, turned and disappeared toward the living room. Cartoon sounds started up from the other side of the house. Rebecca stood at the stove. The pancake was ready to flip. She flipped it, made herself not think too hard. Thought anyway. She thought about where Nora had learned to begin a request with, sorry. She thought about who in the house said sorry the most. She thought about what it teaches a child when the most present adult they know apologizes for taking up space. How patterns move between people without being named, without anyone deciding to teach them. A child watches the adult who matters most to them. The adult says sorry before she speaks, before she reaches, before she needs. The child learns that needing requires apology, that the want of a Saturday morning cartoon is something you should be sorry about before you ask. She served the pancakes. She had taught her daughter to begin with an apology. She had not known she was doing it. She cut the strawberries exactly in half. The dinner that changed things happened on a Tuesday in November. Nothing special about the night. She had taught a late class, picked up Nora from after-school care, gotten home at 6:45 with groceries, and the particular mental hum of a day that hadn't quite finished yet. She made pasta. Simple. Garlic, olive oil, parsley from the pot on the windowsill. She set the table. Plates, forks, water glasses. Everything that needed to be there. She did not put out the cloth napkins. She didn't forget them exactly. She just didn't think about them. Paper napkins appeared from the drawer by reflex, and she put them on the table and called Nora downstairs and served dinner and sat across from Sean and started talking to Nora about the chapter book they were reading. A girl who lived in a lighthouse, keeping a log of ships that passed. Somewhere during the pasta, she noticed the cloth napkins weren't there. Her mouth was already open. The sorry was already forming, the shape of it in the back of her throat. The automatic reach for the apology before the situation had even registered as a situation. She closed her mouth. She didn't know why. She wasn't making a decision. It wasn't a choice. Not yet. Not a conscious one. Just the word didn't come out. Like a car that stalls mid-start without warning. She served herself, poured Nora more water, asked Sean about something from his day.
The Henderson project is about 6 weeks behind. I'll be dealing with that for a while.
She nodded. They ate dinner. Nora told a story about a kid at school who had tried to convince the class that dolphins were technically fish, and Rebecca laughed. And the pasta was good, and the cloth napkins were still in the drawer, and nobody mentioned them. But something was different. She felt it in the quality of Sean's silence after dinner. He was quieter than usual, not obviously quiet. Sean was never obviously anything, but there was a quality to his quiet that was not his regular quiet. She knew his regular quiet. She had learned its textures over 9 years, the way you learn the sounds of a house. This was something else, a slight recalibration. The way a room sounds different when the temperature changes by 2 degrees and no one has touched the thermostat. She did the dishes. Nora went upstairs to read. Sean settled in front of the TV. He didn't say anything about the napkins. She stood at the sink and felt, in the absence of the sorry, something she hadn't expected. Not relief, not victory, something quieter than both. A small, strange sense of the ground being exactly where it had always been, and her feet finding it without having looked. She had not apologized for the napkins. He had noticed. She had noticed that he had noticed. She turned off the lamp and went to bed and lay in the dark and thought, nothing happened. No one was harmed. Everything was exactly as it had been, except that a word that should have been spoken hadn't been. And somehow, the room had registered its absence more than it ever registered its presence. She lay awake for a while. She thought, I didn't say sorry. She thought, he noticed. She thought, that tells me something. She didn't know yet exactly what, but it told her something. The departmental reading series happened on a Thursday in mid-November. A novelist had come up from San Francisco. Rebecca had organized the event, introduced the speaker, stayed through the reception. She was tired in the pleasant way of someone who has done something she cared about and done it well. She and Joel walked out afterward into the November air, and somewhere on the way to the parking garage, they turned in at the coffee place across from the theater as if they'd planned it. That was how it had always been with Joel. 17 years of friendship gave them a shared peripheral vision. Joel had been her dissertation advisor before he had become her department director, the person who had known her before Portland, before Sean, before all the years that had accumulated on top of the person she had been at 28. He was 52 now, the same style of coat he had always worn. They sat with their coffees, talked the way they always talked, honestly and without filler. Somewhere in the middle of it, she heard herself say,
Can I tell you something that's been weird?
That's why God made coffee after 8 p.m.
She told him about the dinner, lightly, as a small, funny thing, not a significant one. She had forgotten the cloth napkins. She had been about to apologize and somehow hadn't. Sean had been quieter than usual. That was all. Joel listened. He had a quality of stillness she had always respected. Not absence, but presence so complete it didn't need to announce itself. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment.
You used to never do that.
Never do what?
Apologize first. For everything. Before anyone had said anything was wrong.
I apologize constantly. You're saying I didn't used to?
Not the way you do now.
He said it simply, not as an accusation, just a fact he had been watching accumulate for 9 years without being asked to comment on it.
You never said anything.
You're a grown woman. It wasn't my place. But I watched it. The sorry before the sentence, that came later. That wasn't in your vocabulary when I met you.
I counted once. 11 times before noon. Not one of them was for something I'd actually done wrong.
I believe you.
He was quiet. He looked at the street for a moment. A cyclist went by, lights blinking in the cold. Then he turned back.
Jung called this the moment the mask starts to crack.
She looked at him.
Not the one you wear in public. The one you built to survive inside. Inside a specific room, a specific relationship, a specific set of conditions that required something from you in order to stay stable, and you built it. And it worked. And somewhere along the way, you forgot it was built at all.
You built a version of yourself that apologized. Constantly. Preemptively, before anyone had said anything was wrong. And the people who built their lives around that version of you, they came to depend on it. The sorry confirmed something they needed confirmed.
Confirmed what?
But they were right. That you were the variable. That when something was off, when the air in the room changed, when a dinner was uncomfortable, when something was missing from the table, it was because of you. And the sorry was you agreeing with that story.
She sat with that. The coffee place was warm around them, a little steamed up at the windows where the November air pressed against the glass.
That sounds like I'm making him into something he might not be.
I'm not describing intention. I'm describing a pattern. Intention is a different conversation.
So, what is the pattern?
You stop giving the confirmation. Even once. Even by accident. You just forget to say the word and serve the pasta and nothing else happens. And something in the room notices. Something recalibrates. Because the confirmation wasn't there, and it always was before.
She thought about Sean's silence across the dinner table, the specific quality of it, the 2 degrees of temperature difference she had registered without being able to name.
He got quieter at dinner. After.
I know.
How do you know?
Because that's what happens. You stopped giving him the confirmation, and for a moment, even a small one, there was nothing to confirm.
Joel did not look triumphant. He looked like a man telling a friend something he had known for a while and had been waiting to be asked.
Jung called the full process individuation. Becoming actually yourself, rather than the version that learned to survive a particular environment. It disturbs things, not just you, but everything built around the old version of you. The mask wasn't vanity, it was intelligence. You learned that the sorry kept the air manageable. So you said it over and over, until it wasn't a decision anymore.
When did I start?
I watched it change over the first 2 or 3 years of the marriage. Not all at once, cumulatively.
And you didn't say anything.
You were happy, or you seemed happy.
You could have said something.
He met her eyes, held them.
I'm saying it now.
She looked down at her coffee. The cup had gone cold. She held it anyway.
So, what do I do?
I think you already know. What did you feel at that dinner table when you didn't say sorry?
Like, the ground was exactly where it was supposed to be.
Keep your feet on the ground.
He said it simply, like a direction that was not a metaphor. They talked for another 20 minutes. The event, the novelist from San Francisco, a colleague announcing his retirement in spring. Normal things, the kind of conversation that happens when 2 people have said the important thing and don't need to circle it again. When she got to her car, she sat for a moment before starting the engine. She thought he watched it happen. For 9 years, he watched the sorry accumulate, watched her disappear behind it, and said nothing because it wasn't his place. If everyone around her had noticed, and none of them had said anything, then the only person who hadn't noticed was her. She started the car and drove home through the November dark. She tried it again the following week. There was an insurance issue, a bill from Nora's pediatrician that had been coding incorrectly for 3 months. It had required 4 calls and 1 very specific conversation with a supervisor who had finally fixed it. She had handled it completely without mentioning it to Sean, the way she sometimes did when the managing of something was complicated enough without adding the explaining of it. 2 days after it was resolved, Sean asked,
"Did you ever follow up with the insurance on that Nora thing? I keep meaning to ask. We need to get it sorted before year end."
Rebecca looked up from the book she was grading. The reflex was immediate. "Sorry, I should have told you. Sorry it took so long. Sorry, you've been thinking about this, and I didn't give you an update." The words were already forming, reaching for the shape they always reached for. She let them pass.
It's handled. I called 4 times.
got it sorted last Thursday. You'll see the adjusted statement in the next billing cycle.
She went back to the essay.
Good. Thanks.
She said you're welcome without looking up. The exchange lasted 30 seconds. Nothing had gone wrong. The insurance issue was resolved, and now he knew it was resolved, and that was the complete set of information that had ever needed to exist. She felt, again, that same precise and impossible feeling. The sense of the ground being level underneath her feet. No triumph, no distance, just level ground. The thing that should have been unremarkable and had somehow become rare. She had not apologized for managing something that was hers to manage. The world had not ended. She thought about what it means to know something and behave as if you don't. What kind of experience teaches a person to distrust their own knowledge so completely that even when nothing goes wrong, they're still surprised? 3 days after the insurance conversation, on a Saturday morning, coffee, both of them at the kitchen table, Nora at her grandmother's for the weekend. Sean looked up from his phone and said,
Can I say something?
Sure.
I'm a little worried about you. You've seemed different lately. Not quite yourself.
She held her coffee cup. She heard, from somewhere interior, Joel's voice. The people who built their lives around that mask, they panic. Not because you changed, because you stopped lying. He looked back at her with the concerned face. Warm, attentive, the expression of a man who noticed you and was taking time out of his morning to say so. She knew that face. She had spent 9 years trusting that face. She asked herself quietly whether the concern was for her or for the mirror that had shifted.
Different? How?
Harder to reach, I think. A little more closed off. I'm not saying you've done anything wrong. I'm just noticing.
Closed off. She turned the phrase over in her mind. She had told him the insurance was handled. She had served dinner without apologizing for the napkins. She had responded to emails with information instead of preemptive softeners. She had done these things and called it straightforward, and he was calling it closed off.
I've been trying to be more direct. Say what's true without a lot of padding in front of it.
He tilted his head, a small, studied movement. The careful patience of a man who is very much paying attention and wants you to know it without saying so.
I just want to make sure you're okay. This version of you, it doesn't feel like you. It doesn't feel like us.
Not feel like you. She had heard it before. She had heard it at dinner when she tried to raise something that was bothering her. She had heard it when she was on the phone with a friend too long and came to the table still inside her own head. Not yourself. Not the version of you I recognized. What he recognized was the apologizing one. The one who said sorry to nobody, standing in the kitchen with her own mug. What he was recognizing now was its absence. She looked at him across the kitchen table. Outside the window, the backyard was gray and bare. The November trees stripped down to what they actually were.
I'm fine, Sean.
Okay.
One word, just okay. Offered with a small nod in a return to his phone. Not angry, not wounded, just a door closed in a way that kept the door visible. The light turned down, but not out. The implication that okay was not okay, that something had changed, and he was going to be patient about it, and his patience was going to be very much present in the room for the foreseeable future. She drank her coffee. She thought, he's right. This isn't me, not the me he's used to. She thought that might be exactly the point. She sat in her office the following week, late on a Tuesday evening. The building nearly empty, a heating vent ticking, the smell of old books she had stopped noticing years ago, and only noticed now because she was very still. She opened a new document on her laptop. She thought by writing. Before she could say something clearly, she had to write it. She typed, "I have been apologizing for 9 years for taking up space in a marriage where I already live." She looked at the sentence. She deleted it. Typed it again, left it there. She thought about the mug in the kitchen. The sorry said to nobody. Nora in the doorway saying sorry before she asked for the thing that had always been hers to have. Diane at the faculty meeting. Why are you apologizing? You're right. Joel, the mask you wore to survive. Not to please. To survive. A behavior built because something, at some point, had made plain that the alternative to the sorry was worse. Not in any single dramatic moment, just the gradual accumulation of 1,000 small responses. The sigh, the silence. It's fine. Really. The temperature of the room when she had not smoothed things over in time. She thought about how the thing accumulates. How the sigh and the silence don't feel, in any individual moment, like instruction. They feel like weather, like conditions, like this is how this room is, and you learn to dress for it. And you dress for it every day. And eventually, the coat becomes so familiar, you forget. You put it on. You forget there was a morning when you decided you needed it. You forget there was a face that didn't need it. She saved the document, closed the laptop. She was not certain of anything yet. She had no conclusions. She had only this, a pattern she had named, and the knowledge that there is a difference, a significant one, between the mask and the face underneath it. She picked up her bag, put on her coat, walked out into the November night. The email came on a Thursday. Same office, same campus, same cold coffee mug in a different ceramic. The light through the west window had the specific low quality of late November afternoons. Pale, thin, the kind that doesn't commit to anything. Sean's email read, "Can you deal with the winter car service this week? I've been meaning to schedule it for a month and keep not getting to it. Make sure whoever you call knows it needs the tires rotated too. Let me know when it's done." She read it twice. Not please, not thank you in advance, not is this something you have time for. Just the thing that needed to happen and the expectation that she would make it happen and report back. She started typing.
Sorry. I hadn't realized you wanted me to handle.
She stopped, looked at the cursor blinking after the dash. She hadn't realized because she hadn't been told. She had not dropped something. She had not failed a task she'd been assigned. She had simply not been told about a task until the moment she was being given it, along with the subtext that it was already overdue. There was nothing to apologize for. She deleted the sentence. She typed, "I'll handle it. I'll confirm the appointment by end of week and let you know the date." She looked at the sentence. 13 words. No sorry, no softening, no permission, asked for the space the words were going to take up. No apology for not having already done a thing she hadn't been asked to do. Just, "I'll handle it." The information that was needed, a sentence that began with the thing. She pressed send and looked out the window at the November campus, where the trees had gone bare and the students moved through the cold with their red and yellow and blue backpacks, and the low pale light was the color of things that were ending and not yet begun. It was not a declaration. She was not certain of anything yet. She had not made any of the decisions that were going to need to be made. She had not had any of the conversations that were going to be necessary. She had not figured out what the 9 years meant or what the years that came after would look like. She had written an email without the word sorry in it. The sentence had simply begun. She thought about what it meant that this felt like an act of courage. A sentence, 13 words. She had sent it and her pulse had done something she hadn't expected. Not fear exactly, but the particular alertness that comes when you do something that violates an old rule and wait to see what happened. Nothing happened. That was enough for a Thursday. There is something Jung wrote that I keep returning to. He wrote that the individuation process, the slow, mostly ordinary work of becoming actually yourself, rather than the accumulated version that learned to survive specific conditions, is necessarily disruptive. Not just to you, to the entire system organized around who you were. He was not describing heroism. He was describing the moment when the adaptation that helped you survive a specific environment begins to cost more than the environment itself costs. Rebecca's adaptation was an apology. She had worn it so long she had forgotten it was a choice. She thought it was consideration, maturity, empathy, all the things it looks like from the outside, all the things it felt like from the inside, when she was busy not asking herself when she had started apologizing for picking up her own mug. And when she stopped, even for an evening, even by accident, something in the room changed. He noticed, he always noticed. That is the thing about a mask built for someone else's comfort. The other person is not wearing it, you are, but they feel it when it shifts. They built themselves on the understanding that you would keep saying sorry, that the sorry would come, that the air would be managed. And when it isn't, the response is predictable once you know to look for it. Not anger, usually. Something that looks more like concern. I'm worried about you. You're not yourself. Not yourself is technically accurate. Not the self they organized around. That one is changing. And the one underneath it. The one that writes, I'll handle it, and presses send without softening. That one is still arriving. The shock that comes when an empath stops apologizing is not a violent shock. It doesn't announce itself with raised voices or slammed doors. It announces itself as concern, as the careful, patient observation that you seem different lately, that this version of you doesn't feel quite right. What is shocking to the system that depended on the apology is the silence where the confirmation used to be. The confirmation that said, I am the variable. When things are off, it's me. I accept this. When that confirmation stops coming, the system has to reckon with the possibility that maybe, just maybe, it was never true. If you are listening to this and you know the automatic sorry, if you know the word that forms before you have decided to say anything, the apology offered to a room that was not asking for one, then you already know what Rebecca was learning. You have known for a long time. The question is not whether the sorry is a mask. The question is whether you remember there's a face underneath it. The face that does not apologize for existing. The one that says what is true without a softener in front of it. The one that writes the sentence and watches it begin. That face has always been there. It was there in the kitchen when the fingers stopped. It was there in the faculty meeting hallway when Diane asked the question nobody else had bothered to ask. It was there in the November parking lot, standing in the cold with a question too large to answer in one night. It was there when the email sent without... Sorry, and the cursor blinked and nothing ended. Sorry, She stopped. She did not finish the sentence. She did not have to.